There are 5 crops sitting in garden centers right now that most people are walking straight past. And by the time August rolls in, those same people will be standing in their kitchen, staring at empty shelves, wondering why nobody told them July was the month that mattered most. Here's the thing nobody explains about growing your own food. Spring gets all the attention. Everybody's out there in April and May, hands in the soil, feeling proud of themselves. But July? July is quiet. July is the month gardeners forget exists. And that's exactly why it's the most dangerous month to get wrong. Because while everyone else thinks the planting season is winding down, the smart grower knows it's just getting started. There's a short window right now, maybe 3-4 weeks, where certain crops will settle into the ground, take the summer heat like it's nothing, and hand you a harvest in autumn that costs you almost nothing to grow. Miss this window, and you're back at the grocery store in October paying full price for the exact same thing you could have grown for pocket change. And here's what really stings about that. It's not that the information wasn't available. It's that most gardening advice online is written for spring. So this exact opportunity quietly slips past millions of backyard growers every single year without anyone flagging it. So stick around because by the end of this video you'll know exactly what to plant this week, why most people get the timing wrong, what mistakes to avoid with each one, and how to turn a few dollars worth of seeds into a fall harvest that actually feeds you. Hey, welcome back to Gentle Greens, the channel that helps you grow more and spend less, one honest tip at a time. If this is your first time here, I'm really glad you found us. This channel exists for one reason. Growing your own food shouldn't cost a fortune, and it shouldn't feel complicated either. And if you've been here before, well, you already know that's exactly what we do, so let's get right into it. Before we dive in, if you find even one tip in this video useful, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more garden owners just like you. And if you're new here, consider subscribing because we drop practical, no-fluff gardening tips every single week. Now before I hand you the list, I want to clear something up. These aren't rare exotic plants you've never heard of. You already know every single one of them. You've probably eaten most of them this month without giving it a second thought. What you don't know is that July is secretly their best planting month, not April, not May, July. And once I explain why, you'll wonder how you missed it for this long. There's actually a simple reason this window exists. Most vegetables fall into one of 2 camps. Ones that hate heat and bolt the second summer arrives, and ones that genuinely need that heat to germinate fast and grow strong before easing into cooler weather later. The 5 crops on this list all belong to that second camp, and once you understand that pattern, you'll start noticing planting opportunities most people walk straight past for the rest of your gardening life. Let's start with the one people almost never plant twice. Crop 1: bush beans. Most people plant their beans once in spring, get a harvest, and consider the job done for the year. That right there is where the money gets left on the table. Bush beans grow fast. We're talking 50, sometimes 60 days from seed to plate. Which means if you drop them into the ground this week, you're eating fresh beans before autumn even shows up. And here's the part that surprises most gardeners. Beans planted in July often outperform the spring batch, because the soil is already warm and the seeds germinate almost overnight instead of sitting there sulking in cold ground the way they do in early spring. The budget angle here is simple. A small packet of bean seeds costs less than a single bag of frozen beans at the store. Plant them now, and you're looking at weeks of fresh harvest for practically nothing. And unlike a lot of vegetables that need staking, trellising, or extra structure, bush beans are refreshingly low maintenance. You put them in the ground, keep the soil lightly moist, and mostly leave them alone. Here's a tip almost nobody talks about. Pick your beans a little early, before they get fat and lumpy. They'll taste sweeter, and the plant will keep producing more instead of thinking its job is finished. There's actually a psychology to it in a plant sense. Beans are wired to stop producing once they sense they've successfully made mature seeds. So the moment you let a pod grow big and tough on the vine, you're quietly signaling the plant to slow down. Keep harvesting young and often, and the plant keeps working for you. One mistake to avoid: don't overwater once the plants are established. Bush beans actually do better on the drier side once they're growing, and too much water tends to encourage leafy growth instead of pods. Crop 2: beets. Beets get treated like a boring vegetable, and honestly that's a shame because they might be the single most underrated crop for this time of year. Here's why July works so well for beets. They actually prefer cooling temperatures as they mature. which means planting now sets them up to size up perfectly as the weather eases into autumn. Plant them too early in the blazing heat of peak summer and they sulk, sometimes refusing to form a proper root at all. Plant them now, time just right, and they thrive right on schedule. And here's the part most people never think about. You're not just growing a root vegetable. Beet greens are edible, delicious, and taste a lot like spinach when sautéed. So one packet of seeds is quietly giving you 2 vegetables for the price of 1. That's the kind of hidden value that never makes it onto the seed packet, and it's exactly the sort of detail that separates a casual grower from someone who actually understands how to squeeze the most value out of a garden bed. Budget-wise, beets store incredibly well too. Grow a good batch now, and you could be eating homegrown beets well into winter without spending another cent at checkout. Just twist the tops off before storing rather than cutting them, because cutting too close to the root tends to cause bleeding and spoilage. A quick trick worth knowing. Soak beet seeds in water for a few hours before planting. Beet seeds are actually little dried-up seed clusters with a tough outer coating, and that short soak speeds up germination noticeably. Crop 3 carrots. I want you to pause and think about the last time you bought a bag of carrots. Now imagine never having to do that again for months. Carrots planted in July are aiming for a very specific reward. A fall harvest that tastes noticeably sweeter than anything grown in spring. That's not marketing talk, that's simple plant biology. As the temperature drops, carrots convert their starches into sugar as a natural defense against cold, which means the carrots you pull in October or November will taste better than anything you've grown all year. The trick with July carrots is keeping that top layer of soil moist while the seeds germinate, because summer heat dries things out fast, and carrot seeds are notoriously slow and fussy to sprout. A light layer of mulch or straw over the row does the job without any fancy equipment, and it also helps keep weed seeds from taking hold before your carrots even get going. Here's something a lot of beginners get wrong. Carrots hate being transplanted, so always sow them directly where they'll grow. And once they sprout, thin them out properly, even though it feels wasteful to pull up perfectly healthy little seedlings. Crowded carrots fight each other underground and end up small, twisted, and disappointing. Give each one room, and you'll get long, straight, satisfying roots instead. Financially, carrots are one of the cheapest crops you can grow, and one of the most consistently overpriced vegetables at the store, especially the organic kind. Growing your own basically erases that entire cost from your grocery bill for months, and homegrown carrots left in the ground under a layer of mulch can often be harvested fresh well into the colder months. Alright, quick pause here because I want to ask you something. If this is already giving you ideas for your garden, drop a comment and tell me which one of these 5 you're planting first. I read every single comment, and it genuinely helps this channel grow when you engage like that. And if nobody's told you today, hit subscribe because there's a lot more where this came from. Now back to the list because the next 2 crops might be the most surprising ones on here. Crop 4, kale. Kale has this reputation for being a spring or a cold weather crop, and that reputation is only half true. What most people miss is that July is actually the ideal window to start kale for a fall harvest, and honestly, fall kale tastes better than anything you'd grow in spring. Just like beets, kale gets a flavor boost from cooler weather. A light frost later in the season doesn't hurt it. It actually makes it taste milder and sweeter, because the cold triggers the plant to produce more sugars as a natural protection. So while other crops are wrapping up as the weather cools, kale is just hitting its stride, standing strong in the garden long after tomatoes and peppers have given up. Here's the uncommon part most gardening channels never mention. Kale is what's called a cut-and-come-again crop. You don't have to pull the whole plant. You harvest a few leaves, leave the rest, and the plant keeps producing more for weeks, sometimes months. That single trait alone makes it one of the best value crops you can grow, because one planting keeps feeding you long after a lot of other vegetables have finished their entire life cycle. A tip that makes a real difference: always harvest the outer, older leaves first and leave the small new growth in the center alone. That center is where the plant keeps producing from, so protecting it means a longer, steadier harvest instead of one big cut and then nothing. And with how expensive bagged greens have gotten at the store, growing your own kale might be one of the highest return decisions you make in the garden this year. A single well-cared-for plant can realistically replace dozens of store-bought bags over the course of a season. Crop 5, cucumbers. Save the most surprising one for last because this is the crop that breaks the most assumptions. Most people think cucumber season ends once summer peaks. In reality, A second planting in July often outproduces the first one. Why? Because by midsummer, a lot of early cucumber vines start slowing down or catching disease from the humidity and stress of the season. A fresh July planting sidesteps all of that and gives you crisp, healthy cucumbers right when your first batch is fading out, essentially giving you a second harvest wave without needing to wait until next year. This is the crop that quietly saves the most money, especially if you enjoy pickling. A single healthy cucumber vine can produce far more than most households can eat fresh, which means the extra harvest either gets shared, preserved, or pickled, and every jar of that is a jar you didn't have to buy at a premium price later. The one tip that changes everything with July cucumbers is giving them something to climb. A simple trellis keeps the vines off the ground, improves airflow, and dramatically cuts down on the rot and disease that ruins so many home cucumber patches later in the season. It also makes harvesting far easier, since the cucumbers hang cleanly instead of hiding under leaves on the ground. Keep the soil consistently moist too. Cucumbers are mostly water, and inconsistent watering is usually the reason behind bitter-tasting fruit, far more often than people realize. So there you have it, 5 crops that most people assume their window has already closed on, when in reality July might be the smartest month all year to plant them. Beans for a fast, cheap harvest that keeps producing the more you pick. Beets for 2 vegetables in 1 seed packet. Carrots for that sweet fall payoff after a little patience. Kale for weeks, sometimes months of continuous harvest from a single planting. And cucumbers for a second wave that often beats the first. None of these are unusual plants. What's unusual is the timing. And timing is genuinely the difference between an empty patch of soil and a fall harvest that quietly pays for itself. The gardeners who understand that difference are usually the ones still harvesting fresh vegetables long after everyone else has packed up for the season and gone back to buying from the store. If this video helped you see your garden a little differently, that's exactly what this channel is here for. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you're planting this week, and if you haven't already, subscribe to Gentle Green so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for spending this time with me today. Now go get those seeds in the ground before that window closes. I'll see you in the next one.